focus in the next couple of years, for sure.
Amazing. And AFK, what are some changes that you've noticed in the marketplace, maybe some shifting kind of trends for consumers in Web3?
So I wouldn't say I have sort of too much experience with that. I have noticed that people have been shifting from like NFTs with like zero utility to NFTs with sort of like more utility. You sort of saw that when we shifted from like PFP stuff to P2E stuff and now like game item stuff, which I think is a pretty good full circle. Because I think what originally got me like sort of into the idea of NFTs was stuff like CSGO skins and like TF2 hats, right? I collected those like religiously when I was a kid. And like just seeing now that we're able to have open marketplaces for these in-game items, not like unlike the Steam marketplace where they would take what like a 30% cut of each of your sales, was really, really great, right? Also just sort of a way to pay back royalties to artists who might be creating these in-game assets and so on and so forth. Like, I just think that this shift is like really, really a positive one. We're moving from, I guess, pulling value to providing sort of value back to the community.
Now that's a great point, and I think the digital assets that we've been accustomed to valuing when it comes to whether it be Fortnite skins or RuneScape items, World of Warcraft, gaming is a parallel and a precursor to a lot of the value that we see kind of emerging in the digital asset market. I'm going to open this up a little bit more now in terms of who is buying NFTs, and I want to talk a little bit about DAOs and their influence and some of the dynamics they have when it comes to marketplaces. I also want to dive into a little bit about what you guys feel is the future when it comes to marketplaces and where people spend their money. So we'll start with Holly, but from there, feel free to jump in. And if somebody is like chatting too much like I am, I'll like kind of jump in, but it's really an open panel.
So I think as my role is like head of artist relationships, I've obviously been focused on the artists and the creators, but more and more you understand that artists and creators are the collectors too. And so my focus has shifted a little bit toward the collector group or collector audiences. And I think the more you dive into it, the more you realize how diverse that group is. You know, you have your kind of investment funds, you have your DAOs, you have your individual collectors, your whales, your kind of Madam Whales. I love that term that Carson Daly uses. It's awesome. And so it's kind of like, you know, in my role at Rarible, how do I kind of like support that group of collectors? And I think probably usability is one of the like key things. So I tend to focus on doing as many kind of curated drops as possible. So for instance, we did so for Valentine's, we did an amazing drop for the LGBTQI community with David Cash and Benny Orr and his metaverse space in Spatial. And then we did a really awesome drop with Vertical Crypto Art and Tezos for Freeze in LA, which turned out to be the first NFT exhibition at Freeze, which is awesome. So yeah, I think that kind of like making it easier for collectors to kind of like find their groove is really important. And I'm super interested in the sort of the DAO communities as well, particularly like Red DAO, who are really focused on fashion. You know, the incredible things that Flamingo DAO do. I was at a really awesome event for Lit, and I don't even know if they call themselves a DAO. They're just being super mysterious.
They're a token, right? I mean, token first. Lit is a token that is dropping art pieces with famous celebrities. The first piece with Robert De Niro. The second piece, it's a collective token that is launching art projects, I guess. Maybe.
Sounds lit.
Does that sound correct?
Very lit.
Just picked that up. That was good. That was good.
Go ahead.
I think just as we see DAOs transform, as we see collectors transform, the time of holding is transforming too. And I think that's a really interesting notion. I'm in a bunch of different DAOs. I collect with different friends. I collect personally. I'm buying things with my girlfriend. And the time to hold for these different pieces, it seriously affects what I'm buying. I tend to flip PFP projects. I tend to hold one-of-ones. But I think that entire, how that evolves and how the utility comes from those one-of-ones and those smaller projects with individual artists versus those PFPs run by a venture-backed company that have a marketing team, a PR team, a business development team. The utility that they can create and the value that they can bring to a DAO or an individual is definitely going to be different than a singular artist. And so I think as we see just this entire economy grow, how each project benefits the different types of collectors is going to change based on their duration, their capital, their structure. So I think we're just at the very beginning of all of this being figured out.
Yeah, I tend to flip nothing, by the way. That's my problem. But in terms of DAOs, I've been in Bitcoin since 2012, so I'm really big on decentralization, and I think this is a very important key part here, that a lot of these new and coming players don't really play the game in a decentralized way. And we have actually launched a token. We have a DAO. You can vote on our next steps and goals. And we basically really believe that users should own their NFT marketplace. So I think this is the future, to be honest. Our first big success was actually a collection called Polygon Punks. Don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it was banned off of OpenSea, and they were searching for a new marketplace to do their trades on. And we supported Polygon as well, and so they came to us, and we did get some DMCAs and whatever to take it off. We, of course, ignored them because we are a fully decentralized platform. We do not ban any collection, no matter what. Our DAO can vote on removing such a collection, but that's it. And 2 months later, OpenSea has returned the collection because Polygon Punks is not CryptoPunks, and they won the argument. And so, but in general, we really strongly believe that NFT collections or NFTs in general should not be, especially if you're trying to become the main place for NFTs, you shouldn't control who sees what. We're in a decentralized world. Everyone can make their own choices, and this is what we strongly believe in. And I think this is the way to go in this market for sure.
I guess to sort of go back to the roots of the original question about sort of like collectors and I guess like by extension the communities that they sort of form. I think that, at least with my experience, originally, like a lot of the earlier communities that were formed around like NFT projects were sort of united by, the price going up. Kind of unfortunate, but like it's sort of how it is. When price would go down or floor would go down, it's suddenly a rug. The community sort of disperses. And we've seen that happen with like multiple projects, right? I think that there should be sort of like a shift of focus in order to maybe like onboarding newer collectors, ones that are actually interested in sort of the art itself. So with Windranger, we actually worked with an artist, Shlomes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, in order to make the sort of car NFT project. So what we ended up doing is we bought and blew up a Lamborghini and then like filmed and NFT'd all the pieces. And we sort of brought in a sort of new demographic of collectors. So some of the people who actually worked on the project who had like didn't really know what crypto was, never like bought an NFT before in their lives, learned how to use MetaMask and things like that, like for the express purpose of like bidding on this project because this project sort of made them like feel sort of things, right? I'm starting to see like a lot of people sort of shift towards that, like maybe bringing in communities that maybe don't necessarily like NFTs for like the flip or anything, but they like the art itself. And I think that that's also like a pretty positive shift within it, because then projects aren't really beholden towards like holding their floor up. I find it really, really weird that projects are sort of expected to set aside funds to effectively pump the own price of their project by floor sweeping and stuff like that, right? I think that the move away from that is actually really fantastic and like what we should be focusing on and getting collectors that really just, like the art. Yeah.
I was just thinking also that reminded me about like fractional ownership as well, and how cool like tools like Partybid and Fractional are. And I love the fact that like Partybid and Fractional are actually two totally different companies, but it's
of where will NFTs go and what will regulation allow, and what's going to happen when they start intersecting? Because we haven't seen that yet, right?
That's a great point. And didn't hear anything, didn't see anything is kind of what we're in a mode we're in right now, where I think in the next year there'll be a lot of adjustment to regulation, whether it be in the States or abroad. You all made some amazing points, and I think between holding or selling or collecting, it's a combination of appreciation of the technology, but also a deep connection with the art. And I believe that this year specifically, there's going to be a bigger collision between that technology curve and that art, right? We've seen iterations of gaming that are more akin to almost like Nintendo 64 games, right? And then we've also seen amazing art on the blockchain that sells for a superfluous price, but nobody really has access to it, right? So the future of what this can be is, I think that collision will be unlocked this year. What do you guys see as kind of the future, whether it be of marketplaces and how they're structured? You mentioned decentralized only or maybe community run. How do you see that changing, and what does a platform like OpenSea look like in 5 years, or Nifty Gateway or Rarible? What is that trajectory in your eyes?
We have just launched our own community marketplace, which is essentially where NFT projects can have their own NFT platform, which is powered by the Rarible protocol. So the future for us looks like more options for creators. And I think in terms of brands coming into the space, and potentially like institutions and galleries as well, the people that have or organizations that have their own huge, massive audiences, why would they kind of want to bring them over to us on Rarible? It's really interesting when you have the conversation. Some of them actually really do want to be part of that community, but others are super excited about this idea of like a white label solution. So we just launched that with Meta Angels 2 weeks ago, and we are integrating Solana as we speak. So we
we are like brothers. Yeah, we are also launching a white label solution and integrating Solana next month.
It's happening. And actually, it's something that I spoke about this morning, was the interoperability of marketplaces. I think that would be super cool. I would love to do something like that was completely unexpected, where like, how does Rarible do something with Nifty Gateway, do something with you guys? What would that look like? I mean, it's completely not something that anyone's been talking about, but I just love the idea that it's kind of disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Rarible currently supports any NFT on the blockchains that it supports, right? So essentially, it is supportive of other marketplaces as well, right now as well. But yeah, definitely thinking that the idea that Rarible is working on, Rarible protocol, is the way to go, and that definitely will help lots of communities, small, big, to launch NFTs to their own audience with simplicity. And I think that this is key here.
I'm super inspired by the way that Partybid and Fractional are working together. For instance, I had a really good conversation with the Consensus team, and they have a brilliant product, essentially, where you would mint on through using Consensus as a tool. But the idea then that you could then use the Rarible protocol as your secondary kind of marketplace, I think is awesome. I like those kinds of solutions too.
Yeah. Yeah, secondary marketplace is definitely the most important thing when you're thinking of launching an NFT in general. That's definitely something you should look into.
Just to sort of add on to that, sort of as a developer, I actually really like the idea of sort of the white label storage solution. And I think that another move that a lot of platforms should sort of make to make this like easier for developers is to just have better API documentation, have APIs that work most of the time. Definitely struggled with on a few sites before. But like an idea like that would be great. Like basically a Shopify for NFTs. Anyone who wants to spin up their own marketplace is able to. Marketplace sort of as a service. Right. Yeah, that's definitely the direction I see the majority of marketplaces sort of heading. It's great to see that some marketplaces are already sort of adapting to it. Because again, like why have Like, why buy something off of like eBay or something, or Etsy, when you could have your own storefront, right?
Right.
Adding on to that, one of the things I was just thinking about where NFT marketplaces are going to go is incorporating physical secondary marketplaces. Because all these projects are starting to launch, you can get utility from getting a physical. So the artist that you mentioned earlier, well, not just merch, I mean like a physical structure. So I have a Tom Sachs rocket factory, and I'm gonna get a rocket. I have artifact sneakers. I have, Gutter Cat Gang hats.
You got the artifact sneakers?
Yeah.
You have them?
Yeah, I've got 5 of them.
Whoa.
He's not going to wear any of them. They're going to stay bought.
They will not be worn.
They're really amazing.
They're beautiful. But and
They're not my size anyway.
I also have an NFT screen in my little NFT office, but now it's being filled with NFT stuff. And so I think the marketplaces are going to have to, have to accommodate for this, because right now, like, I go to Etsy or StockX, right? And they're starting to go into the NFT side, but the NFT side isn't starting to go into the physicals yet.
Wait, NFT sells, StockX sells NFTs now, right? I heard something
yeah,
about
so
that.
they sell an NFT version of sneaker. So if you send in sneakers to StockX, they will send you an NFT receipt, and you can people can trade that NFT, and the ownership changes, but they don't ship it out to you. Right. So you can get it shipped out if you want to wear it, but you can also like invest and just hold it in their bank.
So do they kind of like store the trainers? Is it like a vault?
Yeah,
It's
a vault. Exactly.
I have to give a shout out to a really brilliant British collector, Amir Mondoir. So he has an amazing gallery in Liverpool called Adelia, and he's hosting a brilliant exhibition later on this year, which I think has, I can't remember exactly how many curators, but yeah, it's a pretty stellar lineup. But at Amir's space, when he showed us the gallery space last year, it's like the whole of the ground floor is like set up for like physical paintings and digital, but then you go upstairs, and that's when you start to see all of his like, physical collection of like the sneakers and the little, 3D printed.
I think that part is so important because we still live in a tactile world. I think we're growing the metaverse. We're growing all of this, to be in this digital communities, but we're still all here at a conference, and we're all wearing various degrees of merch from brands or NFT projects that we support and believe in, things that we connect with our identity. I mean, just looking around, like the shirts, the brands that we're wearing, and then like looking out in the audience, there's like Algorand signs on every chair. But we still have this connection to this physical. And so I just see so many NFT brands launching these physical collections of various natures.
I did actually have a conversation with a project a couple of weeks ago about physical like product. And I have to say, having spent such a long time in the fashion industry, I was kind of a little bit reluctant to say that fashion is something that everybody should jump into. It's a really tough industry, and the people that have been in that space building it for such a long time, that sounds very NFT. But, we are in Paris. This is the home of fashion, for sure. I'm kind of like reluctant to say that it's the right space for everybody to go into. But I think the brand collabs is super exciting.
100%. I mean, you look at, hats, and there's French Bored Ape Club upstairs has a booth.
That looks good.
I think they're making merch, but they also have all these Bored Ape shirts. This was an NFT that you had to forge to get the sweatshirt, the t-shirt, and the hat, right? And the NFT got burned, but then I got the physicals. So it's a combination of both worlds coming together, and then I get a hat. It's a ridiculously priced hat, but I get a hat.
It reminds me of the Damien Hirst kind of his artistic venture into Web3, and it's a good kind of segue into a broader conversation about art and fashion that I think we should discuss, being here in Paris and at an NFT conference. When you pitch the use case of NFTs, at least last year and throughout this year, one of the main things that you say is, the authenticity behind what is being created, who is created, the provenance of the art, right? And that kind of extends into fashion as well. Counterfeit Louis Vuitton, now it's not counterfeit, although that's a bummer for me as I wear like a lot of fake stuff. There's so many use cases that, you know, at the bare minimum seems translatable to these, you know, really kind of traditionally avant-garde industries. Can you guys talk a little bit about kind of art and fashion in NFTs?
If I can take this to start. So I believe that like NFT art and so on and so forth is like a really, really great source of funding art that would otherwise not be made. Again, like I haven't really worked on too many NFT things, so I'm bringing it back to that other example with the Shalom's car thing again. Like if he had approached any other company with this sort of idea, they would have called him insane, like blowing up a Lamborghini. Like what the hell is that for, right? We sort of made it happen. And honestly, other artists that have these crazy ideas, if they're able to basically, I don't know, like tokenize and like raise funds off of it in order to build art, monumental art even, they can really serve as a sort of like public good. Because like who else typically funds monumental like scale art, right? What, governments, things like that. And we can't really be like reliant on like these grants sort of forever. Communities sort of coming together in order to fund the art that they want to see made from artists that they want to see be allowed to like paint their visions, right? I think that that's definitely something we could see like happening in the future. Yeah.
I was going to say that, you know, France has such a great history of being brilliant art patrons as well. And you see that with like Louis Vuitton have been amazing. I sent them a deck of NFT artists like in, I think, March or April last year. And they ended up working with Krista Kim, not from the deck that I sent them. But it's great. It was amazing that they were already having those conversations and thinking ahead. And they've been incredibly supportive of the space. And I think are great ambassadors for how to be sort of honouring what Web3 is without, you know, coming in with their own kind of like predetermined ideas about what it should be. It's really been about respecting the art that's being created in the space. I think that's really, really important.
So I love this idea of high-end fashion and NFTs and the interconnectedness between the two, because if you have a collection of 5,000 pieces from Louis Vuitton, perhaps called a Birkin bag, you have, you know, low supply, high scarcity, very highly curated. The materials are phenomenal. It's very similar to owning a Bored Ape, right? It's, you know, very similar characteristics as having an NFT that you connect with as an identity. You have, you know, it was hard for you to get. You're very worried about it being stolen. You know, all of these similar emotions that can be passed over from the high-end fashion or the high-end NFTs.
Yeah, so I think like to answer your question, I think NFTs will represent authenticity, as you mentioned, but they will also be used in the metaverses, which we haven't spoken about at all. We've seen, I've seen two booths upstairs that are working on one called Dress, where you use, so definitely fashion is gonna be, and I think people are gonna walk into real stores, buy their dress, get it as an NFT, get the metaverse version of it, and vice versa. And that's going to be cool.
Yeah, DressX are amazing. And also The Fabricant is that other organization who are doing brilliantly and just raised 14 million in their Series A. I mean, the Fabricant pieces are absolutely sublime. And I know there's kind of like fashion houses queuing up to work with them. And again, it's really interesting to see how the way that they adopt their kind of like experience and tools and service to this industry.
The interesting thing about Fabricant is they have no plans of doing physical.
Yeah.
It's only digital. It's an only digital fashion house. And that itself is really fascinating to think of, you know, what kind of hoodie do I want in Decentraland for my character or in Sandbox? Because in the meat world, I go buy things like this. So like I'm going to want something unique and interesting for that world as well. They're creating all of it.
And since we're here talking about marketplaces, I think that the next generation was going to be the metaverse version of a marketplace as well. So marketplace, you would be able to enter an actual store in the marketplace. We're going to see art galleries in marketplaces, 3D art galleries, things like that.
I actually definitely agree with that. So it could be really interesting, AR or VR stores where you could just walk around, select what you want, have that delivered to you, right? See what it looks like on your character. See what it looks like on you even, with like, I don't know, just the built-in AR capabilities on your phone. I think that'd be like a fantastic
We hosted or co-hosted Decentraland Fashion Week a couple of weeks back, or Metaverse Fashion Week in Decentraland. So yeah, you can go get your free Rarible hoodie in the Decentraland Rarible Fresh Drip Zone. But we did it. We also did a drop with Super Chief Gallery, which was really cool. And they literally had, you know, hoodies, caps, t-shirts. Again, all completely free. But it's like such a fun way of experiencing the metaverse.
I actually do think we might be jumping the gun a little bit about integrating all this stuff first, though, because I feel like the first things first, what we actually have to do is make being in the metaverse and these blockchain games actually fun to play. Yeah, right. Like most of them, what are you doing? You're just chilling around with some people. It's like VR chat, but with extra stabs. Or the play to earn style things. You're just sort of putting something into the game, and then you're waiting for some token to come out, right? We want actual games to be fun. We want the World of Warcraft in the metaverse. We want Final Fantasy 14 or something like that in the metaverse. And I think that's when we'll really see an explosion of stuff like this, because we'll have people wanting to dress their characters in the most ridiculous things, right? Whether to signal or to just sort of see what's possible. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think that the through line narrative is we're building for people here, and it's an extension of culture into the digital age. But give it up for our panelists here. Really, really an exciting time, and thank you so much for being with us, and have fun out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.